Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we're going to be talking about feats, that optional rule that so few people know is optional. It's actually a thing the Dungeon Master does not have to allow, but most of them do, and it is an alternative to the standard ASI's ability score increases that characters run across. At levels 4, 8, 12, 16, and 19, characters can choose to bump their stats. They can take a +2 to their important stats, or +1 to two of them, and make themselves more powerful. But at their DM's discretion, and usually this is how it works, you can take a feat instead. These feats give you special powers, giving you new abilities that you wouldn't normally get. And they are one of an optimizer and a creative player's best friends. Paladins are one of the greatest classes in all of D&D. Martial masters with all sorts of powerful magics and interesting abilities that are defensive and offensive in nature. They are one of the coolest classes to play, no doubt. But what feats could they use to shore up those little weaknesses that they have throughout their character building? I've prepared a top 5 list of recommendations for feats that paladins should consider while moving through their career. But before we get into the list, I'd like to let you know that Relaxed Fantasy Review has memberships for just $1 a month. You can support me here on YouTube. There's a join button just below the video there. And if you click on that, you get a little badge next to your name in the comments, letting folks know that you're a supporter, as well as earning you my undying gratitude. Thank you so much for watching, for supporting me, and for enjoying the content here on YouTube. So, feats for the Paladin. What's one thing that the Paladin struggles with? I would argue it's mobility, because Paladins wear heavy armor, they don't get speed boosts, and they could definitely use a mobility buff. Enter my first recommendation, Fey Touched. Fey Touched is actually considered a half feat because you still get a +1 to an ability score. In this case, it's a mental stat, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. I recommend charisma since that's a paladin spellcasting stat. And then you get two things. You get the spell Misty Step, which is a phenomenal mobility spell letting you short-range teleport, as well as a first level spell from the divination or enchantment schools. I recommend that a paladin take something like Hunter's Mark or Hex, letting them deal extra damage on their hits. But they could also take something like Silvery Barbs to help debuff enemy saving throws. There's a lot of cool choices on these lists. And then Misty Step is just phenomenal. And you can cast both of these spells for free once per day, and then use your regular spell slots to do it. So you don't even have to waste your smite slots. Smite slots? You can just do it once for free, which a free Misty Step will never disappoint. So yeah, Fey Touched, solid pick if you want to take a feat. But let's say you don't want to worry too much about your magic and you just want to hit things over and over again and use up your smite slots to do damage. Well, may I recommend to you then Polearm Master. Polearm Master is wonderful because it gives you a bonus action attack automatically. When you attack with one of 4 specific weapons, a glaive or a halberd, a quarterstaff, or a spear, you can, when you attack with them, use your bonus action to hit again with the butt end of the weapon, the blunt end. This bonus action attack does only a D4. The other weapons do anywhere from a D10 to a D6. But it still counts as an attack, meaning that you can still smite on it and get other buffs like your strength buff, your strength modifier added to it. So the die is less important, and it's just more important that you're getting the extra attack in the first place. What's more is that with Polearm Master, you gain a new way to opportunity attack. Usually an opportunity attack is when a creature moves away from you, and just before they leave your reach, you can use your reaction to stab them in the back. Well, With Polearm Master, you can do that when enemies enter your reach. An enemy's running at you or trying to run by you, you can use your reaction to attack them as they approach. This just gives you more ways to attack with your reaction and your bonus action. So this makes paladins using polearms very helpful. I would say that you'd want to use a big two-handed one like a halberd, but honestly, if you want to wear a shield and be that super tanky heavy armor paladin, you can still use a staff or a spear, and these feats work just fine. And then there's another feat that I recommend here that goes along with Polearm Master amazingly, but also works on its own, the Sentinel feat, the most defensive feat out there. The main feature of this feat is that when you opportunity attack someone, like, with Polearm Master when they approach, or just normally when they're running away, when you hit them, you set their movement speed to 0, effectively stopping them in their tracks so they can't escape you and they can't run past you either. They can't even run up to you, skirt around you, and then take an opportunity attack to get to your back line. You just hit them and they can't move. That's awesome. And then a lot of folks will be like, well, what if the enemy just disengages? Guess what? Sentinel makes disengage not work. If an enemy disengages to try to get away from you, you can still hit them. Very, very rarely in the game of D&D can you just undo a basic action, but Sentinel lets you. And that means that it is almost impossible for enemies to get away from you. And then, if that wasn't enough, it also grants you a reaction attack, another one, when enemies attack an ally that's next to you. If you've got an ally right next to you and an enemy hits them instead of you, because you're too heavily armored, you can use your reaction to attack them with an opportunity attack. That is also made regardless of the disengage feature and stops their movement. So yeah, Sentinel makes you the ultimate hold the line individual, especially if you're wielding a polearm with reach. This just means that no one is getting past you. So what else can we do for our paladin? Well, paladins have spell casting. Yes, their spell slots are not just for smiting. But one thing they don't have that their cleric brethren do is ritual casting. You see, a paladin wants to save their spell slots for smiting, if I haven't made that clear already. But what if they want to cast a spell? Well, I recommend the Ritual Caster feat. This gives them the Ritual Caster ability. Ritual spells basically are spells that if you take extra time to cast them, 10 minutes on top of the regular casting time, you don't have to use your spell slots, so you can save them for smites and still use utility spells outside of combat. It makes you choose a class that is tied to your ritual book. Most people will think, well, I should choose something that goes with my paladin casting, so bard or sorcerer or warlock. I don't think that's wise. I say go for the wizard, because you're ritual casting. Most ritual spells don't involve attack rolls or saving throws, so your spellcasting ability doesn't really matter that much. You just have to have the spell in your book. This lets you grab Find Familiar, which is an amazing spell that helps you in combat and out of combat, as well as plenty of other picks, Identify, Detect Magic, some more niche picks like Detect Poison and Disease, or Unseen Servant. There's loads of things you can do with ritual spells, and you don't have to use your spell slots on them. And you can add more spells to your spell book as you level up by finding spell scrolls and spell books and writing them in, just like a wizard can. This is a phenomenal utility buff that takes the in-combat, almost unbeatable paladin and makes them really useful outside of combat as well. So yeah, ritual casting, solid choice for a paladin. And then finally, the ultimate defensive feat, Heavy Armor Master. Heavy Armor Master grants you a +1 to your strength, so it's a half feat, and it says that anytime you take bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, you reduce the damage by 3. This makes you the ultimate minion buster. You can run into a crowd, and they're all hitting you with like a dozen attacks, each one doing a small amount of damage, killing you with bug bites. Effectively, Heavy Armor Master says absolutely not. Take all of those attacks and reduce them by 3. That could cut their damage in half or even more. And that makes you fantastic at taking out multiple, lots of small enemy situations. The other cool thing is that if you are fighting a really massive enemy that's eating your smites for lunch, yeah, they're probably going to be multi-attacking you, hitting you 3, 4, 5 times. Each one of those attacks is getting reduced, meaning that you are taking 9, 12, or 15 less damage than you normally would, giving you loads more staying power. All in all, this feat works in combat and is beautiful for a paladin who wants to be on the front line taking these hits so that their allies don't. Any of these feats, whether you're talking about magic boosting, damage boosting, battlefield control, utility, or defense, these are the feats that will give your paladin the extra oomph that they need to make them nigh on unbeatable in a game of D&D. If smiting doesn't quite meet the mark, these feats will make you one of the greatest characters in the whole game. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. Have a look for the join button down there. And keep your eyes peeled for more feat reviews coming down the line soon. Have a good one, my friends.